Hello and welcome to this broadcast as part of Screwfix Live. My name is Alison and I work for Mind in Somerset, part of the national charity that supports people with mental health. I'm really pleased that Screwfix have chosen to dedicate quite a proportion of the time for Screwfix Live towards mental health and well-being. It's hugely important, particularly now at any time. And what I hope to do over the next 15 minutes is just to talk to you a little bit about mental health, what it is, what it isn't, what the prevalence of it is at the moment, and also look at some top tips and quick wins. I'm not going to say easy wins, but quick wins that you can do to help you to support your own mental health. So when you're watching this broadcast, what I'm hoping that you will be doing is not only thinking about your own mental health, but also that of those around you. So your friends, your family, your work colleagues maybe, because it's important that we look out for others as well. And there might be something out of this broadcast that you think, yeah, there's a problem there. I need to go and offer some support. So first of all, let's look at what mental health is. So it seems that we cannot turn the television on these days, or social media or the radio, without seeing another sports star, another celebrity talking about their mental health journey. I think the most recent I saw only yesterday, I think Freddie Flintoff has got a documentary this week talking about his struggle with bulimia, which of course is a mental health related illness. And it's really, really good news that these high profile people are choosing to talk so openly about their mental health. And that wouldn't have happened even 3-4 years ago, I don't think. But the reality is, for most of us and for most of you, that actually talking about your own mental health and that of others is still a bit awkward. It's a little bit difficult, and we don't like to talk openly about it. It's perhaps seen as being a weakness. It might be a bit of a chink in our armor. And as I said, we're not only not happy opening up about our own mental health, but if you see a friend or a family member that might be struggling, it might be something that we just want to avoid. When you think about it, it's really strange, because if somebody had broken their leg or had a bad cold, we would ask them how they were. We would offer them all the sympathy. But for some reason about mental health, we don't always do that. And that's one thing that certainly here at Mind in Somerset, we really want to change. So what is mental health? Well, just like our physical health, it's not a static position. There's good mental health and there's bad mental health. And when our mental health is really good, so we're excelling, we're sharp, we're able to make those quick decisions, we are focused, we've probably got really good social networks, we're seeing friends and family, we are exercising regularly, sleeping well, and we're in a good mood. At the opposite end of the spectrum, so the red area, so really the orange-red, struggling or in crisis, you just have, you can't make decisions, you're not even able to make the slightest decision. You have probably retreated and not seeing friends and family socially. You're probably in a bit of an irritable mood and getting on the nerves of everybody around you if you are still talking to people. You're not sleeping well, and the chances are you could be self-medicating through alcohol, and maybe you smoke, maybe even smoking more. So it's a spectrum, and the reality is that for most of us, we swing somewhere on that spectrum. So maybe not to either end, but we're usually swinging somewhere around the middle. It's not a static position. And that can change for us day to day, sometimes hour by hour. So I don't know about you, but I can wake up on some mornings, once I've had my first cup of tea, and actually feel really quite sharp and ready to get on with things. So, you know, probably in that thriving situation. But there could be one or a number of things that happen throughout the day. So I could lose a piece of work, or the dog might get on my nerves, or I could be cut off at a junction, forget my lunch that I'm taking into work. It could be a whole number of things. It's not just the big things. And it depends what your triggers are, because actually the same things might hit different people and they'll react very differently. So actually, as I said, everybody has different triggers, and it means that we can move really quickly on that spectrum, even within a day. It's certainly not static at all. But it really only starts to be a problem, so what we would call a mental health illness, if you are regularly and consistently in that struggling or in the crisis area. And GPs, the medical profession, would usually say if you're there for about 2 or 3 weeks and really can't get out of it with your own help, that's when it starts to become an issue. And that's when we're really looking at some sort of intervention and some sort of support. If you're not able to help yourself, it might be that you go to your GP. It might be that you need some medication to help you on the way. It might be that you look to a charity such as Mind or even the Samaritans, but just you need some sort of external support. So actually, mental health is both good and bad, and it can waver on the spectrum. So what is the prevalence of the problem? Well, it is estimated that 1 in 4, so a quarter of all adults in the UK, will experience a mental health problem in a given year. That's a huge figure. Now, that's a mental health problem. That's people that are in the sort of bottom half of that spectrum that I talked about just now. It's a really difficult figure to pin down, actually, because, as I said, we still don't talk about it openly enough. Some people will not either A, not recognise that they have a problem, or B, recognise it but not telling people about it. So it's quite a difficult figure to pin down. It's estimated that it's probably slightly better figure for men, actually. I think that's probably about 1 in 6. But the statistics, which I'll show you in a second about what happens for men when they do experience a mental health problem, can show you that it's a really big problem and a more severe problem for men in general. I would imagine, we haven't seen any statistics about this yet, but I would think that that's probably, that 1 in 4 is slightly higher at the moment anyway. I heard somebody say a little while ago that it's thought that the long-term effects of the mental health of the nation as a result of coronavirus will long outweigh and long outstrip the issues around the virus itself, which is a really scary issue. There's a lot of people that have lost their jobs, have fear of losing their jobs, have fear of the illness themselves, have had their normal day-to-day routines and lifestyles completely changed. And actually, it's the not knowing as well. At the time of recording this, the government has just announced a further wave of restrictions, and we don't know how long that's going to continue. And that unknowing and that uncertainty is certainly not helping people's mental health. So a few more statistics. So before I look at those statistics, it is estimated that around about 250,000 people a day will be going to their GPs for some sort of mental health related support. Now, of that big figure, only around a quarter of those are men. So the vast majority of people who are going for support are women. Yet look at that first figure. 75% of all suicides are men. And in fact, it's the biggest single killer of men under the age of 40. So it's a huge problem. And when you add to that 67% of drink-related problems are from men, and drink can either be a cause or an effect of mental health. 73% of people who go missing are men, and it's also a much higher proportion of men who are homeless as well. And 95% of prison inmates are men. Now, I'm not unfairly targeting men here, but I just wanted to show that actually, although men are statistically less likely to have a mental health problem, when they do, it is far more severe. And that largely comes down to the fact that men are generally, and I'm making generalizations here, less likely to talk about their issues and less likely to open up until it's potentially too late. But you know, mental health is not just an illness of the mind. There's no doubt that it can cause physical illnesses as well. Even slightly being a bit off kilter, so really low level mental health, can increase smoking and drinking habits. It can make our diets worse because we just get out of the habit and we just want to eat rubbish or comfort food or don't have any pattern or routine around food. It can cause erection problems, so therefore problems with relationships. And as mental health issues get more severe, it can double the risk of heart disease. So heart disease, liver problems, all sorts of issues, very physical issues, are related to mental health. And it is scientifically shown now that actually people with particularly anxiety but depression are more likely to have an increase in premature death. So it's not just an illness of the mind, but it's definitely a physical illness as well. So what can we do? What can you do to actually start to take some steps to improve things? Now, what I would say is that don't wait until you're at the bottom end of that spectrum. These are the things that you can do. Some of these things, at least anyway, are things that you can do day to day. It's important to get into the habit of some of these when we are in good, reasonable health anyway, because then if you do slip into the bottom half of that spectrum, you've already created some of the habits that you need and you've invested in your emotional bank to be able to pull on that when you need it. So first of all, and the most important thing is to acknowledge the problem. If you don't acknowledge the problem, perhaps when people are telling you or suggesting you to have a problem, if you are remaining in denial, then it's going to be really difficult for you to get yourself out of it. The very first step is to acknowledge that there's a problem yourself. And when you have acknowledged that, talk to somebody. We keep coming back to that theme again, talk to somebody. It could be anybody. It could be your GP. It could be a friend or family member. It could be your boss. It could be to a support line, such as Mindline, somebody who's anonymous like that. But the really important thing is to talk to somebody. There's an old expression, isn't there, that a problem shared is a problem halved. And that's true, actually. If you can, people say that have been suffering with mental health issues for a long time, just the very process of sharing with somebody, just getting it off their chest has helped enormously. And as part of that, to widen your social network, so widen the people that you talk to, whether that's friends or family members. Because actually, as I said, one of the symptoms of actually having poor mental health is we begin to retreat. We begin to not want to speak to people exactly at the time when you need to get out there and widen your network. Now, that's been a little tricky over the last few months, admittedly, and it could get trickier again over the next few months, especially with the winter months coming on. But there's the telephone, there's Zoom, there's all those other ways. You can still meet people in parks and go for walks and runs and whatever it is you want. But the important thing is to keep talking to people. And also when you're talking to people, if you can find that one person that is in your corner, somebody who's going to be your cheerleader, and by that I mean somebody who's going to take the time to listen to you and take the time to be non-judgmental and supportive. They don't have to fix your problem straight away. They just have to be that one person that you know that you can rely on, whether that's in just sharing stuff day to day or when you're really, if you are in a deep spot and you need some support. So acknowledge the problem, talk to somebody, widen your network and have somebody in your corner. But there are other things that you can do as well. And these really are the things that I would encourage you to do when you're feeling okay, when you don't feel that you have any mental health issues at all. This is about looking after yourself. There's an expression that says you can't pour from an empty cup. And I love that expression, because what that means is if you are empty yourself, if you've not invested any time in yourself, then you're not going to have anything to give back to other people, whether that's through work or family or the rest. So it's really important. It's not selfish to take some time to look after yourself. And the one that's been scientifically proven is regular exercise, that there is something about the endorphins that when they're released when we exercise, which supports and improves our mental health. There are times when we don't feel like it, when we need to get off the settee, and that's going to be the same in the next few winter months. But if you can get out and do regular exercise, and so if you can get out and do it outside in nature, then even better. It's also really important to eat and sleep well. If you can do that when you're feeling fine, when you're feeling good, then that will help get that into a healthy habit for when you're not. Sleep particularly, if we're anxious or depressed, that can really affect our sleep. And it becomes a downward spiral, because the less we sleep, the more anxious we get, and therefore the less we sleep. So it's really important to try and get some routine around eating and sleeping well. And at the same time, to drink and smoke less, and at least be aware when you feel that you are beginning to self-medicate, particularly around drink, if you feel that you have an anxiety or depression problem. Really important to try and reduce that as much as possible. Take a break. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, it could be anything that makes you happy, takes you away from perhaps the source of the stress or anxiety, whether that means taking a day off, whether that means going out for a run, whether it means taking up a hobby, a new hobby, something you wanted to do for ages, to learn something new, read a book, watch a film, whatever. But actually, it's not selfish to take some time for yourself and to take a break. And related to that as well is the final point, which is give something back. So again, it's been proven that people who volunteer or give something back, that has a dramatic effect on their own mental health. So you might want to formally volunteer somehow, or do something informally. If there's an old person in your street that needs some support, that you can help with some gardening or whatever, or somebody in your family that you think you could do with some support. Or maybe you could be that person in the corner for somebody else. So somebody that you know is perhaps struggling a little bit with their mental health, ask them how they're doing and find the time to listen to them as well. So look after yourself, regular exercise, eat and sleep well, drink and smoke less, take a break and give something back. So the thing about mental health or poor mental health is that it doesn't mind who it attacks. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter how much you earn. It doesn't matter how successful you are, or even if you're a member of the royal family. And these are just a few people. I could have picked out so many more. And Robin Williams there and Keith Flint from The Prodigy are two that unfortunately ended up taking their lives because they weren't able to share their problems. They weren't able to get the support that they needed. But I just want to point out a couple of people here. Alistair Campbell, who's in the bottom left-hand corner there. So whether you like or loathe him, I mean, Alistair Campbell was a spin doctor in a previous government, really, really high profile, absolutely at the top of his game. And yet behind that, he was suffering from absolutely crippling mental health issues. I think he got hospitalized at least twice. He got sectioned once. And he is now very open about that and has just recently written a book about it. And I find that absolutely fascinating, how somebody can be so high profile and so high performing and yet still have those really severe mental health problems. I also want to talk about the chap in the middle, so Lee Hendry, ex-Premiership footballer and I think now Sky Sports pundit. I had the pleasure of doing a short interview with Lee as part of Screwfix Live just a few days ago. And he is really open about his mental health issues and his suicide attempts that he's had. And he said two things which really stuck in my mind. When I asked him what's one bit of advice you would give anybody with mental health issues, straight away, within a heartbeat, he said, to talk to somebody, to reach out and get support. And he admits that that took him some time. When he was first recommended to go to talking therapies, he got to the door and couldn't go in. He used the words, he was saying he was too proud and he felt ashamed, but he can see now that that was a strength to actually go and get the support and not a weakness. The other thing he said is, because he still has down days now, and he talked about small steps. So anybody who's suffered from severe depression will know that sometimes it's really difficult even to get out of bed in the morning. And what he does is take small steps. So he thinks to get out of bed, make his bed, and open the curtains. And that is his first achievement of the day. It sounds really small, but actually, if you're really struggling with your mental health, that's a huge thing. It then might be to go and have a healthy breakfast and go for a walk, or take his children to school. And that's his next achievement. And it's all about small steps. When you really are struggling and you're in that crisis area of that spectrum, it's about not being hard on yourself and taking each tiny little bit of life as it comes. And he explains that really well. And I think the recording of that interview is still out there somewhere on Screwfix Live. So if you can get a chance to listen to that, I'd highly recommend it. So where can you go to help? There is loads of information out there now to help support you with your mental health once you've made that acknowledgement that there's an issue. Google is your friend, and these are just some of the places that you could go to help, for some help. So Mind, either the National Mind website, or you will have a local Mind, as in Mind in Somerset, have their own website, which not only has lots of good information in there about supporting your mental health, but will also tell you about some of the services that are in your area. The Men's Mental Health Forum has some great information online as well. And as does a website called Time to Change. And if you are an employer, if you've got employees, then Time to Change is particularly good for finding out what you can do to help to support the mental health of your employees. And actually it's a legal requirement to do so now anyway. And I've just added there the campaign against living miserably, Calm, which is a campaign that Channel 4 was supporting a little while ago, and that was particularly supporting the mental health of younger people. So to telephone somebody there, obviously your GP, I've mentioned before, is often a first line of defence. But if you felt unable to do that and wanted to speak to somebody anonymously, then there is the Mind National Helpline. Or, as I said before, the local Minds will have their own helplines. I know that Mind in Somerset, as a result of the coronavirus pandemic, our helplines are now open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and are busy and are continuing to be busy. So you have the Mind National Helpline, or if things are really bad, there's the Samaritans as well. The important thing is to talk, to share it. I can't emphasize that enough. So getting near the end now, but I just wanted to say that probably the most important person here, not probably, definitely the most important person here that can help you is you. As I said before, to acknowledge the problem, you need to acknowledge the problem and to take the first step. And that first step can be really huge, but once you've made it, once you've reached out and shared, it can only get easier. And even if you're not suffering at the moment, if you feel that your mental health is okay and you're just pottering along, again, it's down to you to maintain that. It's down to you to put the support mechanisms in to make sure that you don't slip the other way. So it's okay not to be okay. Of course it is. We're one in four of us, and it's actually a strength to admit that rather than to struggle on your own. It's good to acknowledge that, as I said, and even better to share it with somebody else. Find that one person that's going to be in your corner to support you. So that's it from me. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you on behalf of Mind and Mind in Somerset. Thank you again to Screwfix Live for asking us to be part of this. We're delighted to do so. And I hope you enjoy the rest of Screwfix Live. Thank you. Goodbye.